Hey, MJ here with a quick content warning that may contain spoilers for this episode. Skip ahead to avoid those. We really get into Tyler Foone's backstory in this chapter. It is not a nice story. It contains a lot of abuse to a few different people. Some of them are children. If you don't want to hear it, maybe just sit this one out. Thanks again for listening. Previously on the Beam Chronicles.
Can't beat love. Hell, only thing beats love is hate, and you ain't even got that for me anymore, right? You want to hear the old tales of me, kid in rural England, drunk, abusive papa?
Come on, daddy issues. We actually got a box for that pre-printed on the form. All I gotta do is exit. Is that why you murdered your wife? He just laughed.
I ain't got a lick of remorse for that cunt. What if I told you I didn't do nothing to her? They found a pile of corpses and one cat standing by, made an assumption, hey?
Sleeping with her ex-husband? You think that justifies killing her?
Fuck, Teaque, you got it all locked up, hey?
You confessed.
So, why are we talking about it so much if you already got it all wrapped up in a bow?
Okay, then tell me what happened, Tyler.
If I had it again, I'd do the same. Let's just say I went and did the world a favor that day.
Sure, there it went. Just murdered a little girl in cold blood.
Right. Hey, why don't you go and watch your stepdad kill your mum and dad? Then go, have a regular life. Death is a mercy sometimes, mate. You of all people should know that. I remember, but I still can't believe that I did. And I know it's fucked. I know it's insane. Once I pulled that trigger, once I took her, darkness forever. I guess I answered my own question, huh? Why I can't just take the bullet? I don't deserve one. Whatever hell's got for me, this is worse. I might just laugh about it, I guess.
These are the Beam Chronicles with your host, MJ Dooney. Book 2, Compromise, Chapter 25, Jaxon Teaque.
I gotta say, Teaque, you never cease to surprise me.
Foone sat up slowly and tried not to smile as I stood in front of his cell, holding down the intercom buttons on either side. It's Monday, isn't it? I responded.
Well, yes, but by any chance did you forget last Tuesday, mate?
I will never forget last Tuesday. I said it so coldly, the faint glimmer of a smile instantly disappeared from his face. He cleared his throat, scratched his eyebrow.
I presume the whole me joining Ava ship's damn well sailed, eh?
He nodded.
Good. No, that's fair. I'll take those lumps.
I'm glad to hear you're on board.
So you come down here just to make me feel like shit, then?
Don't you think you probably deserve to feel like shit?
Fine.
He growled deliberately, then asked me more directly the question I was intentionally ignoring.
Can you please explain why you're here, Jaxon?
My emotions toward him were a complete train wreck. Because any rational person in my shoes, given our recent history, hell, our complete history, would despise Tyler Foone. Yet, everything Charlie said at the press conference sunk into my guts at such a depth I'd never fish it out. I pitied him more than I hated him, and as I looked into his sunken, bloodshot eyes, I wanted so badly just to talk about the weather, or old anecdotes, books, movies, cars, sports, something frivolous like the old pals we almost were a week ago. It was actually a challenge, not letting down my angry facade, and no matter what I chose to do with him, I'd feel like I should be doing the other thing. Being mean to Tyler was making me feel wrong, depriving him of his only friend during a time when he needed one the most. Being kind to him would make me feel like I was losing touch with my humanity. Any way I looked at it, Foone had a way of twisting me up. It reminded me of the early days with Charlie, where I loved or hated every single thing about her without middle ground. Eventually, I got to know her whole story, I understood her past, and love won out entirely. Sure, she still drove me bananas every so often, but in spite of her glaring character flaws, I wouldn't change a thing about her. I was far from in love with Tyler. And the key difference I always had to remind myself of when comparing him to her was that she felt legitimate remorse for what Howie forced her to do. Foone wasn't forced. He was wicked on his own accord for pleasure and leisure, and the remorse he showed was psychotic, rooted in his fondness for me. Like, he only felt bad about what he did because I didn't like it, but he didn't care. Maybe that should have upped my drive to be nice to him in order to keep the compunction there to stand up against the vile hell, almost like it was my responsibility, but I really didn't want to. Trainwreck. How would I parse through it? Did you evacuate the buildings, Tyler? I eventually said, remembering Hugh Conrad's comments from the presser. Before you attacked and destroyed and knocked them all down, did you tell all the people to get out?
Yeah.
He muttered, refusing to look up at me. Why? I repeated Conrad's question.
I don't know.
He lifted his gaze, sneering. He twitched a bit, like a jolt hit him, a remnant spark from the electromace. I could have sworn, in the most unfathomable and sensational way, an uncanny flash of yellow danced through his eyes. Must have been a trick of the light. Feels like a pretty conscientious effort, Foone. Like you definitely made a decision to...
If that's why you're here, then go. Because I can't make sense of it myself, and I've had shit else to do for days now.
It's not why I'm here.
Then why?
It's kind of a long story.
Not like I got anything better to do.
Well, how about this then? I'll tell you why I'm here, but before I do, I want you to tell me a story.
I ain't got no good stories to tell, mate.
Then tell me a bad one.
Huh.
He snorted, then started biting his fingernails. I wish I would have brought my pink evaluation sheets, despite the fact they were completely filled out anyway, just to provide me with a distracting prop at times like this. You remember the first good meeting we had, Foone?
I do, yeah.
You remember when you asked me what we were supposed to talk about, and I said we could discuss your backstory?
Yeah, and you said daddy issues. We got a box for that printed right here on the form.
He sneered, then looked away from me. Apparently my snide little retort months ago struck a deeper nerve than I realized. Tell me that story.
Nah.
Why?
Because I know why you're asking.
All right, why am I asking?
You think you'll hear it? It'll give you some perspective on me. Why I do what I do, why I ran.
He wasn't wrong. I was looking for a way to simplify this debacle of emotions. Won't it?
Sure, it might. Doesn't mean I want you to hear it. In fact, kinda explicitly why I don't.
What, you worried I'll forgive you again? I'll hear your sob story childhood and wipe away the fact you just murdered me and Charlie? Think you're protecting me from you or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Look, I'll admit that I'm gullible. You've proven that more than anyone, but it's a lot harder to get a third chance than a second.
And you would be the guy to grant a third chance. Therefore, not telling ya.
Fine, I'll go first then. I relented just slightly. Reason that I'm here is Charlie found her brain. And Phil, the green guy, he wants to go look at it. He's been doing research on Kevorkian's brain in jar procedure for the better part of a year now, and he thinks if he gets in front of the finished product, he'll understand specific things better. Then maybe he could even start developing a way to make Charlie immune to Howie's influence. First step toward freedom sort of thing. It's all speculative at this point, but we figured there's not much we can lose and a lot we can gain. Plus, if we tread lightly, we can pull the whole thing off without Prophet knowing, barring a forecast. Charlie's upstairs right now, sixing Phil and all his equipment so that when the timing's right, she'll be able to group everything. And Caraway requested Howie take a trip to the mountain branch for some administrative garbage, so he'll be out of the picture, at least physically. Once he's gone, Charlie will group all of us down to her brain, give Phil his chance to examine it, then group us all back up before Prophet gets home.
Seems dumb, first of all.
It is very dumb. I bet the bullet.
Then why are you doing it?
Because we gotta do something. He chuckled in spite of himself. And yeah, he might forecast it fine, but I'm sick of using Howie's forecast as a rationalization to prevent us from moving. This is just information gathering, a meager stab at fighting back. Even if he discovers we did it, he'll only slap us on the wrist. We're too famous to lose over something so trivial.
Still dumb.
He shrugged. Well, unfortunately for you, I'm not really looking for input.
So what's it you're looking for then? Why are you telling me? What's my role?
I folded my arms, pressed my back into the wall behind me. Tell me about your dad, Foone. He sighed, slapping his hands to the cot and pulling himself up slowly. A week ago, I would have assisted him telekinetically, but for now, I'd allow him to struggle. I wondered if he knew all this time how often I'd been helping him with little things like moving around. Once he found his feet, he meandered over to the glass, rested an arm against it, and leaned his forehead in so I couldn't see his eyes. His voice was muffled, but clear enough to hear through the crackly intercom.
You want the story? Fine. Here you go.
With one last deep breath, he plunged into it.
My dad was bipolar, schizophrenic, a bunch of other words I forget. Didn't much matter around those parts. You don't go bragging about that sort of thing. Especially not a guy with the family history he had. It was a small town, quaint. Everybody's parents grew up together, which made keeping secrets harder, yet more important. He was good at it, me dad, covered it up so well, you know. A big thing like that had to be tough, took some of the meds, talked to his psychiatrist, but hushed like private. So practiced and polished, faking his sanity when it was necessary. Quiet about it, and me mum the same in that respect. Nobody knew our little family secret. Our secret crazy daddy.
He glanced up and smiled at me, and I tried to shoot back a look that wasn't nearly as sad as the joke was. I don't think I did a very good job, judging by the pain in his face.
But, you know what don't mix so well with imbalanced is inebriated. And Papa was a right gnarly drunk. Bed 4-7. That was our rule, me and my brother. We worked it out right quick. You get to bed 4-7, and by the time Dad comes home, he won't even remember you exist if he don't see ya. Leaves him only Mum to wail on, right? Crafty little fuckers we were, hiding up in our room, safe under the covers, while sweet old mother screamed and cried, tried her damnedest just to get through, keep that fucking family secret. My saintly mum taking it all on. I was too small. I didn't know any better. Got a little older, got a little more aware of what was happening, how much of a coward I've been. 14 I was when I made the new deal with me brother. He was 12. We weren't gonna let Mom take it all on alone anymore. We were done hiding up in our beds 4-7. We'd split the take evenly, alternate the three of us. First me, then him, then her. Scheduled nights for our lunatic drunk of a father to beat us senseless, taking turns at it. Polite, practical, yeah? Anyway, it was my day.
As he stalled, I noticed the faint quiver of his dried-up husk of a body, moving just to remind itself there was still a life left inside. But the look in his eyes, so empty and still, said that if there was a man in there, somewhere trapped and buried, whatever prayer he stood of getting out was negated by his own unwillingness to try. So instead he just quivered, teetered on the brink of death, dry, shaking. He repeated himself.
It was my day. 7:30, but winter, January, so pitch dark out, and Mum, she hated the whole take turns idea, but she had a headache that night either way. She got plenty of them these days, headaches. Any case, she turned in early, my brother the same, just me, standing in front of the door on that January night, 7:30, when me dad, twice my size, sauced beyond rationality, barged into the house, grabbed me by me shoulder, dragged me outside. See, he wanted to teach someone how to swim that night, and it was my day. Only fair. Lake was frozen, but he stomped a little hole in it for me, tossed me on in. He wanted me to go under the ice. Thought it'd be a real riot, you know, waving at me from the surface while I was trapped underneath, but I couldn't will myself to do it. Too cold, too terrified, maybe for the first time in my life, little bit defiant. Dad wasn't exactly pleased about all that, grabbed me by the hair, plunged me under, held me there until my feet quit kicking and the world went dark. I thought I died. Right then. Hell, I wish I had. I accepted it. The last 2 seconds in the pitch black, ice cold lake, I came to terms with death. You know how that is, right?
Again, I could only work up the feeblest smile.
Thought to myself, maybe this is how they get free. Me mum and me brother, maybe they get the courage now, in my death, to say something about it. So good will come of it, yeah. And anyway, it didn't matter. I was ready to leave behind the cruelty of the world. I was finally at peace down there. In the water.
He hung on that word for a bit. Water. Then sniffed abruptly, pressed on.
But I wasn't so lucky. I woke up the next day, my brother's day. So imagine me surprised when I heard me mum screaming down the hall. I was so pissed at him for breaking the schedule. I got up, I stumbled around a little bit. My legs were still a bit wobbly from the dip night before, but I was determined. Made my way out into the living room, found my dad on top of her with a butcher's knife, hacking away at her gut like a pig. And I thought about stepping in, stopping it for a while, but I remembered how badly I wished I could have died the night before. Why deny my mum that sweet, victorious release? I blankly watched him bleed her dry. I heard her crying fade until she didn't have room for air anymore. Her lungs were too filled with blood. And that's when I saw him too. Right next to her on the ground, me little brother. One I was so mad at for not taking his share just seconds ago. 12 years old. Hacked to pieces as well. But his day, right? Only fair.
He paused momentarily, clenching his lips and eyes tight, pounding on the glass.
Shouldn't have even been there, Teaque. Should have been in bed for 7, just like we used to. Just like scared little kids are supposed to when they're living with a monster. Should have been safe under the fucking covers if it weren't for me and my goddamn plans to redistribute the torture more evenly across the 3 of us. And all I could do was remind myself, repeat it over and over in me fucking head. Only fair, his day.
I didn't think I'd get the end of this story. Quite frankly, I didn't care to hear it, but as he pulled up from his lean, I watched the rage build up in his face, the twitching snarl and the furious eyebrow tilt. He practically shouted the rest, quaking with wrath.
I ran out into the shed. I grabbed the biggest fucking shovel I could lift. I beat my drunk father's brains in with it while he was doing work on me mum. I stepped over the pieces that were left of me brother and I ran into the night before the police could figure out who done it. There it is, Teaque. You happy? That's my fucking backstory. You were so keen on hearing. You got a bastard tick that says all of that. Could you maybe go ahead and tick it already? Spare me the fucking agony reliving it.
Tyler, I didn't know. I'm sorry.
You think I ain't sorry? You think I don't wish it were different? I can't change it. Not now. This is who I am, Teaque. This is where I came from. The whole tale. How it all began. Hell, it's the platform from which I launched me love story. Imagine that, huh? Unwanted orphan, patricidal rat on the street, selling drugs to keep himself fed and warm. Finds people who give a fuck about him. Hell, loves him. Love, right? I grew up thinking love were the days dad came home too wasted, passed out on the couch, while mum thought she was sobbing quietly enough in the bathroom that I didn't hear it. I drowned, woke up swimming in blood. 5 years later, somebody offered me a chance to escape me own head. Can you even imagine how good it feels to be that far down and have someone scoop you out of it? And can you imagine how bad when that same person kicks you down even fucking lower than where you started?
He panted for a second, glaring right through me with his fangs bared and his eyes wild. I watched the tremor of his whole body slow down to its regular shiver, his dry, bloodshot eyes stain an even more prominent shade of red. He scowled at me, but through his fury I could read a desperation, a pleading for mercy, for release. I didn't know if it meant he longed to stop talking or longed to purge the last details of his tortured past, so I just nodded. I gave him permission to do either one, whichever he craved, willing to cut the noose he'd spent his whole life convincing himself he deserved.
They told me that she was in pageants. Yeah. Kay, me wife, she told me we wasn't gonna make the bills. So she and her ex-husband was putting her into the pageants, make some money.
Sabrina. I filled in her name for him because I knew he couldn't say it himself.
Yeah.
He dropped his stare 1,000 yards into the ground, chest starting to heave again as he clenched his teeth.
She won them all, Teaque. I mean, she was a beautiful little girl. You know the type. You ever see a little thing, no more 5 or 6, takes your fucking breath away? Not even yours, but some kind of instinct kicks in anyway. Hey, you do anything to protect them. Keep them safe, let them stay beautiful and innocent as long as they can, cause that's a fucking tough combo to cling to, right? Ain't nothing in the world stays beautiful and innocent all that long. Someone's gotta come along and...
I felt a lump settle into my throat, so profound and heavy, I almost sat on the ground. My voice failed me a few times as Foone kept staring into the ground. Then, finally, I said it. They didn't put her in pageants. He smirked, but so clearly it masked the most crippled, defeated sob.
There's some pretty fucked ways to make a penny off a beautiful kid.
How did you figure it? I couldn't even finish the question. My blood wasn't pumping. My guts felt like a vacuum. My brain was numb. I wanted to kill her parents. I didn't even know them.
She was drawing.
He slammed his hands over his eyes, overcome with anguish.
With her little crayons, yeah? She was drawing at the table, and I was prepping her lunch. I went over to take a peek, and it was...
Don't. I couldn't bear it. Please, Tyler, don't tell me. He lifted his eyes, trembling with rage, face gaunt, etched with unbridled fury.
What? You can't take it, Teaque. Too much to hear, hey? Imagine seeing it. You thought your pride and joy, prettiest thing you ever had, drawing it with the crayons. Noon 30 on a Tuesday, eating a bologna sandwich with the crust cut off. Something no kid that small has no right knowing about, and she's drawing it. You want to know how it feels to see that, Teaque? You want to know what pain really is? Cause you and I have both died, twice each. I'll tell you, you don't know what dying is. You can't even imagine what it feels to die like that. I want to strangle the life out of the fucking prick who done it to her, and I did it with so much conviction and certainty, I couldn't hear Kay screaming for me to stop. I couldn't have stopped. Nobody could have stopped me. God himself, Teaque. God could have come down to take my hands off his fucking throat, and I wouldn't stop. He was dead. The second I saw what she was drawing with her crayons, and you put me in that room 1,000 times, I'd squeeze the air out of him 1,000 times. I felt his windpipe snap in half. I squeezed harder. I saw the light go out in his eyes, and then I heard a gunshot. I thought it was Kay what shot me, and I didn't much care. She'd already killed me enough, but when I turned around, it was Kay that had a bullet in her head, and...
This time there was no mystery in his face, no uncertainty to what he wanted. I could finish the tragic tale on my own. You did tell me that you didn't kill your wife. He smirked, but only for an instant.
Tell me, Teaque. God's honest truth, because what's the point of lying about it? Would you have let her go on? Because I knew the path she was on. I knew the life she was heading toward. I was fucking living it. She'd be just like me. Would you have let her? I hugged her as tight to my chest as I could. I took the gun out of her hand and if I had a fraction of courage, I'd have offed myself right after. Instead, I gave in. I gave in to the darkness, finally, after years of fighting it, watching it grow and surround me, denying it and defying it. I let it take me. Evil was everywhere, so maybe the only way to survive was to succumb. That's why I did it, all of it, and that's why I ran a week ago too, because boy, now I'm good at it, aren't I? My whole life I've been running. My whole life I go through the door the second it opens up because hell, I might make a friend. And goodness help the poor sap when I turn into me dad again and the darkness eats me from the inside out. I'm poison, Teaque. There's your fucking perspective. Nothing but wretched, worthless, rotting poison. And you and yours are damn well better off without me. Just like the whole bloody planet.
This story didn't help ease the tumult. If anything, it just made my head spin faster. Friend or foe, pitiful or deplorable. He towed so many lines, so many distinctions I didn't have the energy, willpower, or motivation to make. Tyler Foone used to be so simple. Now I didn't know what to think of him. But I knew for certain I didn't hate him anymore. It was just like Charlie said to the press a week ago. Through all that pity, where was the room for hate?
Anyway, that's that.
He finally said after what felt like hours of silence, sniffing in through his nose and clearing his throat.
You know my whole story. My whole lousy story now. All fancied up with context. Back to your shite.
Oh, I started feebly, almost having forgotten my intentions for coming down here. Right. Foone, if you want to keep talking about this instead,
I really don't.
He interrupted so sternly and bluntly that I had to move on. Frankly, I couldn't blame him for wanting something else. Yeah, all right, so, your part.
Sure, let's have it.
We honestly just need an alibi. Howie's forecasts have been unreliable lately, so we're going to use that doubt just in case he does happen to suspect anything. To do that, he can't have any solid factual evidence that we were down there. And Charlie sixed around. There's practically no security in the oubliette itself, probably because Prophet doesn't want a record of it, even its existence. Meanwhile, my ID still blacks out your cell for visits. The Dungeoneers won't see what we do after we meet up here, so we'll gather, wait for the blackout, group to the oubliette, let Phil work, group back here, and the security footage will show us walking away. Anybody who sees it will assume we were all just talking to you.
You don't need more help for any of that.
Howie won't think you have any reason to lie. We need you to corroborate that story if anyone asks you.
Is that all?
Just that?
Ain't much.
Yeah, well, even this wasn't an easy sell. You understand why Charlie and Sydney are completely against trusting you at all, right? He frowned, which made me feel bad for him, which made me feel inhuman and distant, which made me feel glad he was frowning, which made me feel cruel. I thought about his dead little brother that he couldn't save from his dad, and his dead little daughter he couldn't save from himself. Where was the villain? Who was I supposed to hate? Who was I required to love? Enough. Damn it. I hopped off the carousel. I gave up trying to calibrate the appropriate response to him. Maybe there wasn't one. Who cared anyway? What I thought didn't matter. Howie would eventually force us into companionship or enmity when the mood appropriately struck him. Until then, Foone was my unsteady friend. Whatever kind of animal that made me, that's the kind of animal that I was. Look, I didn't say it was a big favor, but the hardest part of resetting at square one is getting back to square two. That's all I can rely on you for right now, Tyler, and you barely deserve that, but it's a start. Take it or leave it, like you said. We can essentially do it without you. but I'm giving you the opportunity to earn the respect back only if you want to.
Yeah, got it. I'll lie to Howard Prophet for you if he asks. You got my word. Whatever that's worth to you.
Not nothing.
Pretty close, I reckon.
Thank you, Tyler. It's a good first step. I'll see you next week.
Did you not hear me tell you I'm poison?
Yeah, well, I think I might be the antidote. He smiled. For its lack of enthusiasm, it was easily the most sincere demonstration of happiness from either of us this entire visit. I reciprocated that sincerity. He scoffed, shook his head before turning to get back into his cot, and this time I did assist him, but I still wasn't sure if he noticed. Just after I turned to walk away, I remembered one last thing I wanted to say, looked at him over my shoulder. You had it backwards, by the way. He laughed without coughing.
Lots of stuff, yeah. My whole life, all along, but which part in particular are you talking about now?
Only thing beats love is hate. You told me that right before you killed me. Do you remember?
I remember.
Backwards. He smirked.
Maybe you're right. Not like I'd know.
He might have found out if you would have stopped running. But what good was it now to point that out?
Thank you for listening to The Beam Chronicles, a fiction podcast written and produced by me, MJ Dooney. Old news first, 5 stars on Spotify or Apple, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. New news, 5,000 downloads happened. I'm actually at 5,020. If you're hearing this, you contributed to that number, and I thank you, sincerely, with all of my heart. This little passion project of mine will always be so meaningful and important to me, so if it touched you too, that's what it's all about, man. I'd love to hear from you if you want to shoot me an email, beamchronicles@gmail.com. Thank you again, everyone, for getting me this far. Still 3 episodes to go in this book. All music and sound effects were sourced from the Epidemic Sound Library. Special thanks to Sergio Duarte for creating the cover art for the show. Thanks one more time for listening.